When the small planes came, they fumigated the house, everything. Short afterwards, because of the fumigation, my little daughter died. Poison came all over her, and then she started to vomit and died.
If one of those planes would pass by right now, we would let them have it, a complete hill of lead.
Two planes came and they fumigated. Some were around 10 o'clock in the morning. Everything was affected and my little girl got poisoned. I found her dead. She was just 17 months old.
A considerable part of the cocoa crops are located in territory dominated by the guerrilla movement. Earlier attempts by the Colombian anti-narcotics police force to eradicate cocoa crops ended in violent confrontation with a better armed guerrilla. The government's only alternative was to fumigate from the air. Even so, the inevitability is the drug war has a direct interface with the counterinsurgency war, the epicenter of which is also in the south of Colombia. The small town of San Vicente del Caguan is the gateway to the south of Colombia. To get there, one has to pass through a rigid checkpoint of the Colombian army. Soldiers check everyone who is traveling to this town. Because San Vicente de Caguan, for over a year, has been formally under the rule of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, the FARC, the world's longest-running guerrilla movement.
We created a demilitarized zone by order of the national government, where the military and the police are not allowed to enter, where we can talk.
With no military and no police, the only force authorized to carry arms and officially govern is the guerrilla. The locals, mostly merchants and peasants, have become used to the presence of the Revolutionary Army in the streets of San Vicente. Beyond the town, a negotiation center was established, where peace talks are held.
There has been more progress than in the last 40 years, but it must be said clearly, peace cannot be found around the corner. Peace cannot be declared by law, nor is it the result of just two meetings. Peace needs to be constructed.
That's why the peace process is important, but we are still at the very beginning. We insist with all our energy that we should be allowed, as Colombians, to resolve our internal problems without outside interference, without any pressure from abroad.
Deep in the Colombian jungle, the civil war and the war on drugs appear to confluence.
We became aware that the sky was invaded by helicopters and the fumigation airplanes. As it is known that this is a guerrilla area, the Caguan region is called a red zone. As far as we could see, the pilots of the planes seemed to be Americans. They did not appear to be Colombians.
In Colombia, there's not a single liter of glyphosate sprayed from the air without an American order. That means that Colombia lacks all autonomy over decisions about fumigation.
Ricardo Vargas has published several books about the effect of the fumigation policy imposed by the United States.
The fumigation is obviously related to the policy to reduce the availability of coca. That means it follows the principle that the problem should be stopped in its origin. That policy is an absolute failure. In Colombia has been fumigated more than any other country, especially in the period from 94 to 99. And exactly in that same period occurred the main growth of the number of hectares with coca crops.
The drug war in the south of Colombia primarily affects the peasants. Over time, the region where the coca leaf is grown has become more or less abandoned by the state. There are no roads. Riverways offer the only access. Not only food, but every basic has to be shipped in, which makes the cost of living 2 or 3 times higher than elsewhere in the country. Thus, as a result of costly riverborne transport, regular agricultural production is simply not cost-effective. For this region's peasants, the only alternative is the coca leaf. Most of the south of Colombia, where there is no state presence, is ruled by the guerrilla forces. Fabian Ramirez is commander of the FARC's 14th Front, which covers the complete coca region. He says the guerrilla does not protect the coca fields, but protects the peasants, who are not to blame for the drug problem.
Because the peasants do not have an army. They are unarmed. If they want to use force to fight the drugs, they should use it in Bogotá, in Cali, Medellín or Barranquilla, because there's where the drugs traffickers are and where they have their armies.
For the decision makers in the United States, the FARC's domination of the coca region is sufficient proof they are narco-guerrilla. The FARC does have a close relationship with the coca growers. The guerrilla does not prohibit peasants from processing cocoa in small rustic laboratories. Every cocoa hectare produces close on 1 kilo of basic cocoa paste. This is sold to buyers from the drug cartels. To get the basic cocoa paste out of the region, buyers are required to pay 10% of its value to the guerrilla. However, the Colombian government agree that the FARC does not produce nor participate in the transport or commercialization of cocaine, and therefore are not a narco-guerrilla.
If they were a narco-guerrilla, we wouldn't be talking with them. They are not a drug cartel. They are not drug traffickers. The day they become so, we would stop the dialogue immediately.
However, the United States does believe the FARC has become the new drug cartel, the follow-up to the dismantled cartels of Medellín and Cali. Washington is convinced the war on drugs cannot be separated from counterinsurgency.
If the perception persists that the guerrillas is the new drug cartel, just substitutes of the former cartels of Cali and Medellín, those who really benefit from that are drug lords.
Colombia's president, Andrés Pastrana, requested US President Bill Clinton's help to finance a plan which would eradicate coca cropping, the Plan Colombia. Clinton's proposal was a fund of $1.7 billion for military assistance, the creation of several specialized battalions, military bases from which the drug war would be coordinated, and providing several dozen helicopters equipped with latest technology. Professor Luis Alberto Restrepo of the Institute of Political Studies in Bogotá doubts the Clinton aid package could work efficiently.
Where this policy will lead to is to strengthen the social base of the FARC. The peasants who suffer repression by the government will see the FARC as their defense. In that sense, the Plan Colombia is the most illogical and counterproductive you can imagine.
Gerardo Moreno tried to substitute his coca crop with other products. With the help from the rural parish, he changed the crop for rubber trees. Fumigation destroyed everything.
From here, we could almost see their faces. How is it possible they did not see it were rubber trees? And not just 3 or 4 trees. No, there were 15 hectares of rubber. Now it's all poisoned. The soil has been deteriorated. It has lost its fertility. The upper coat of the ground has been destroyed.
Following each fumigation, peasants search out new areas in the jungle. For every fumigated hectare, 3 hectares of tropical rainforest are destroyed, whilst the fumigation program did not reduce the quantity of the cocoa crop, whilst in consequence, thousands of square kilometers of the Amazon burned away.
I feel the entire drug policy will end up entirely mixed up with the internal armed conflict and will become the main factor of further destabilization.
We as the FARC have a lot of information about what the CIA, the DIA and the Pentagon are organizing against Colombia. They are seeking a direct intervention in the internal affairs of Colombia. We are aware that the Plan Colombia, which was recently approved by the US Congress, has above all a military content.
That's what the Plan Colombia is meant to be for, to change that policy. The Plan Colombia is exactly meant to be an invitation to the international community to help Colombia to solve the drug problem the way we helped the world.
The Colombian government insists the military aid offered by President Clinton is just one part of the Plan Colombia, which also seeks considerable European support for social development. Yet there is no guarantee that this aid can be obtained. There are differing opinions between the Colombian government and the FARC regarding Plan Colombia. Nevertheless, they continue negotiations.
I believe they have the will to reach peace, but not just peace, but a peace that will lead to fundamental reforms that are needed in the political, social and economic area.
The United States do not believe that the guerrilla wants peace. They don't believe that that is a way the problem can be resolved. That's why of Clinton's $1.7 billion aid package for Colombia, 82% is military aid.
In the south, the FARC is consolidating power. The guerrilla already controls the extensive Caguan area. Nobody enters or leaves this region without passing the guerrilla's strict checkpoints. The guerrilla wants to ensure enemies do not enter the zone and dispute power. In the riverside villages, only the guerrilla is visible. The local population, they don't know any other authority.
People here do consult the guerrilla for all kinds of problems, asking for advice. That makes us think that we are the real power here, and we have to deal with that power.
In the coca growing region, the FARC seeks to end the total dependence of coca. The peasants depend on the buyers of cocoa paste. When they do not appear, there is no alternative than exchanging cocoa paste for food. Sometimes there is no cash money in circulation for months, so cocoa paste becomes the local currency.
Our purpose is to explain the population that they have to grow food. We have told them many times, stop growing coca, destroy those crops, and they respond us. Well, and you guys from the FARC, are you going to sustain us then?
The guerrilla fears the US military aid package will intensify civil war. In local meetings, the guerrilla tries to convince cocoa farmers to grow food crops in addition to cocoa leaf as a safeguard. Peasants fear if they do that, they could lose their crops to future fumigation.
The fumigation didn't just destroy the alternative crops, it also destroyed the intention and the morale of the peasants to go forward to substitute illegal crops for alternative crops.
In 25 years, they did not succeed in stopping the flow of drugs to the United States and Europe. So, it's time to ask the question, why did they insist and continue with this strategy?
With the increase of US military aid to Colombia, it appears likely the war will continue for many more years. Whilst in Colombia, the bloodshedding goes on, and sadly, not drug lord blood.